Welcome into another episode of Homegrown. Today we welcome in 2019 alum Yianni Skeriotis. Yianni, welcome on Homegrown.
Thanks for having me.
For this episode of the series, we're going to get more of a player look on the program and what your athletic and baseball career is like after graduating Jackson. So first off, Yianni, go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself. You know, what I said, you're 2019 alum, and then where you've gone since leaving Jackson.
So I went through the youth program since I was younger. I played for Jackson. I was on the 2017 state championship team. I graduated in 2019, and I went to Ohio State for 2 years, and now I'm transferring to Toledo for my third year.
So your playing career is still very much open. You're looking to get back, and I know we'll touch on some things about, pitching and arm care and stuff that's very important for these younger, kids to learn and hear from people they might look up to. I mean, like, this is a big K to life, as Coach Gamble would say.
Absolutely.
We're calling it homegrown because this is going to reach all levels of the kids in the program, from 8U, 9U, all the way to graduating seniors now. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's just jump into your time here at Jackson under Coach Gamble and under Coach Rodriguez, the pitching coach. What was it like here? How much fun was it? And then how much behind the scenes stuff really goes on with trying to live up to the standard and precedent they have set here?
Well, so when I first came into the high school, it was a big jump because I went from, playing 8th grade, like 14U, and I went to JV, and I was under Coach Blackstock, and I had a really good relationship with Coach Gamble because he was always at all our practices and everything. And it was just I would just say the demand was a lot higher because you were at such a big program with a lot of success, and Coach Gamble really tries to push you. So then by the time you get to varsity, you've kind of got a little bit of taste of that. And once you get to varsity, it's just a whole different ballgame because the game's faster, but Coach Gamble structures his practices so well that, I feel like there was more pressure in practice than there were the game to perform. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, you're always ready. Coach Gamble gets the best out of you, and he finds different ways to connect and, to really push players. I mean, sometimes you got to kind of yell, sometimes you got to just take it softer, and he knows exactly what to do with each individual player.
Right. And we just had Coach Gamble on in our last episode of the series, Homegrown, which if you missed that, you can go back and find it on the Jackson High School Baseball Twitter page or YouTube. And, we talked about BEARS. That's something that was implemented and what it stands for. And two things was relentlessness and speed. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned how hard practice is. And myself being a 2016 alum and a lot of alum watching this, we understand there's always been that quote, you practice like you play.
Absolutely.
And you just mentioned Coach Gamble makes practices harder so that when the game comes, the speed isn't really an issue. I mean, obviously you're going to have days here and there, but how big of a plus or perk is it to make that practice that much harder? So when game time comes, especially for you being a starting pitcher, you know what to expect. Perhaps you're able to take deep breaths instead of letting the moment get to you. I mean, how big is that for you being a pitcher?
Well, I think it's just the preparation is the biggest thing. So kind of in practice, you got to learn what kind of breathing technique works for you, what kind of mental cue works for you. Because when we're doing first and third plays in practice, there's music blasting, you got to really communicate. He's yelling, all the coaches are kind of getting into it, all the players are getting into it. So, when you take that first step off the mound, you got to check third, you got to check first. But by the time the game comes, it almost feels like it's slower. Mm-hmm. And so the preparation that Coach Gamble kind of gives you is just it's crazy. I just feel like the games are easier than practice, and the way that we prepare under pressure really makes it different from any other team I've ever been on, including college, including youth, summer. It's just crazy.
And I completely agree, and I know Gianni, who's behind the scenes doing this, would agree, and most alumni that have come through the program while Coach Gamble is here would agree with that. When we talk about practice and everything that goes into it. Let's talk about, you mentioned mental just in the last statement you gave me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about mentality and let's talk about failure, okay? And, you are one of the record board here in the facility. You're on there a lot, right? You had a tremendous high school career, but maybe didn't end how you wanted it to, right?
Yep.
Maybe left a little sour taste in your mouth. And looking back on it now, maybe not so much, but in the moment it does. Let's talk about first mentality as a pitcher. What did you do over your 3 years on varsity, the tremendous career you had here at Jackson, now the career you have at the next level? what is your mentality as a pitcher like? What do you think about? What do you do so that the moment doesn't get the best of you?
So Coach Gamble always kind of preached to me the bulldog mentality of just never giving up and just giving your best, but also the assassin. And basically the assassin part is just you want to hit your spots. I mean, you're very careful, you're manipulative, you know exactly what you're going to do, and you're going to execute it that way. And so the mentality of, I would say, a starter in high school is just you want to fill up the zone and you want to execute as many pitches as you can. And you really want to make sure, for the higher end pitchers, you want to start establishing, okay, I want to establish the outside, now I want to establish the inside, now I want to make sure my curveball's going. So by the 6th, 7th inning, you have everything working and the hitter doesn't know what's going on. But Coach Gamble he always preaches this, you just got to keep fighting until the end. Even if you walk the bases loaded, I mean, you got to come back and throw a strike because it's just that next pitch mentality versus, what did I, kind of looking back and saying, oh, I just threw a ball, shoot. He kind of gets that out in practice too. If you feel the ground ball bad, oh, hey, next ball, come on, let's go. You got to make the next play because you don't want one error turning into two. You don't want to miss one pitch and then miss the next one and then miss the next one. And now either ball's flying out of the park or you're walking the guy in first.
Right. And like you said, big thing for you, control, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's also something that Coach Rodriguez, or as we refer to him around here, D-Rod, the pitching coach here, which he will be on an episode of Homegrown here eventually, and I'm sure we'll touch on this, but he's also the guy you worked with hand in hand the most. Talk about his approach and everything, because you had a phenomenal career, like I said. But I would say once I graduated, looking back and being able to watch you, it looked like you took a lot of pride in having control, right? Exactly. Maybe not having to throw it past everybody. Mm-hmm. Maybe not there's the strikeout pitchers or the contact pitchers. I would say you were able to do both. And would you attest that to what the philosophy was with Coach Rodriguez?
Absolutely, because so when you're in when you're getting into the 14U summer ball kind of stuff, it's all about, hey, here's a radar gun, what's your velo? Mm-hmm. Where's it going? Nobody cares if it's in the dirt, is it up high, who cares? First day I came into Jackson for tryouts as a freshman, there were no radar guns. The only thing you were counting were how many strikes you threw in that bullpen, and that was your tryout, because they know what translates to a game. Strikes translates to a game. Velocity will come with age, strength, and better mechanics. And so the coaches here understand that. So it was very different coming in just to see that, oh my gosh, all they care about is filling up the zone, executing your pitch. And, the biggest thing for me was once you get to college, that's what they do too. They're not sitting there with a radar gun behind you all the time saying, hey, what's your velo? Okay, highest guy gets a throw. No, it's who can execute the most pitches, because at that level, everybody throws basically around the same. Mm-hmm. So, coming here, I think that the control part really translates more to a game because, like you said, my sophomore year, I didn't have anything that blew anybody away. I mean, I was probably 83, 84, maybe touching 85 once in a while, but I mean, nothing to where a high school hitter was like, I can't hit this. Mm-hmm. And then, back to my junior year, I never was really that 92 guy. I was still around that 88, and but my pride focus was, listen, I'm going to throw this on the outside, and I'm going to ask you, can you hit it? If you can't, I win. So, and I could do that with 82, I could do that with 84, and, that actually helped me when I went to college because I obviously tore my UCL my freshman year, and I was pitching basically the entire fall with, no UCL, but I was still getting outs. And I was throwing 82 against college hitters in the Big Ten on a team that just won the Big Ten championship. I was facing Dylan Dingler every day, and I was just hitting my spots, and it was working. So at the end of the day, hitting your spots for me was the biggest thing. I didn't really care about velocity or anything in high school because I know how to, I was told and taught through Jackson, the way to win is to execute your pitches and make sure that you make every pitch count rather than let's just see how hard I can throw it down the middle.
Right, and there's a big difference in that, and you see it now between different high school programs that maybe have a stud pitcher, but they don't make it very far in the state tournament now. They're getting knocked out in first and second round. You see it now in showcases, and then ultimately sometimes these kids that want to throw hard can lead to arm injuries. And I'll hold that thought there because I want to come back to you and talk about arm care. Yeah. But the next place I want to go before we get there is failure, right? Mm-hmm. Your high school career didn't end the way you wanted it to, right?
Absolutely.
Very successful high school career, though, looking back at it. As a pitcher, though, you're going to deal with failure, okay? You were very fortunate enough. I mean, you were very blessed, and you got to go for almost 3 years without experiencing it. How do you deal with it, though? Because you're not going to have it every night. And I'm sure there were nights that you didn't have the control, but that's where you have to trust your defense behind you, right? But how do you as a pitcher and a baseball player and athlete in general deal with failure?
So, I mean, you could take like some of my games and say I had small failures, right? Like, because I remember my senior year against McKinley, we were playing and I only had a fastball. I mean, I couldn't find my curveball, I couldn't find my changeup, and even I couldn't even throw an 0-2 curveball. So I was working straight off a fastball from basically the second inning and on. And I went 7, and it was just, at the end of the day, you got to know that like your hard work will pay off. And I use failure just like that Walsh Jesuit game my senior year that we lost. I use that as a driving force every single day. I think about that game every single day, every moment of when I train. And that's what really pushes me. So, I mean, a lot of people can say, you know, learn from your failures. I don't love that expression just because at the end of the day, you know, I want to win and I'll learn, you know, from my mistakes, but still, I still want to win no matter what. So I think the failure part comes with, it's either going to push you or it's going to crumble you. And, you know, I take it as, listen, if I have a failure like that McKinley game where I just didn't have any of my off speed, I use that entire next week to push myself saying that won't ever happen again. And it didn't, because every single day I threw a ton of changeups. I threw a ton of different breaking balls. I did all these different drills, and I really just took the next step into preparation for a game.
And so while we wrap up this episode of Homegrown, I want to touch on arm care. You know, this is going to go out on all our social media platforms, and there's going to be a lot of youth watching this. I just, you know, walk us through where you are right now with your arm for those that don't know.
Yep.
And then also just how important arm care is. I mean, you've got to expand, and you're not one that took it lightly before, but as we know, things happen to athletes all the time.
Absolutely.
Freak injuries, just, you know, wasn't your day and something happens. So why don't you talk us through what happened with your arm, and then also like express how important arm care really is for not only pitchers, but every position player, right?
So I kind of got the first taste of like how important arm care was when I was in high school, and I went and played for Jackson, and we started doing the crossover bands. And Coach D-Rod made us do it before and after. And that was really the small taste I had. And then when I went to summer, my summer coach was also a Division III college coach. And his thing was, you're not pitching twice a weekend, and you are on a pitch count, because at the end of the day, you're just trying to get a scholarship, right, in the summer. So that was kind of the first taste I got, and as I kind of started going into high school and college more, it became a bigger emphasis on, okay, this is how you warm up your arm, this is how you cool it down, and this is what you do in between innings, because I was the kind of guy that I would just sit there in between innings. 2 outs are there, I'm still sitting there, all right, 3rd out, then I just run out, and my first throw, I'm throwing. And, you know, I kind of learned that, listen, you got to start doing whatever you feel is right. I mean, I know guys that do plyo balls when there's 2 outs. I know guys that just do arm circles. There's just like the body blade. People do a lot of different things, and just I would say the importance of arm care is just, you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to, you know, kind of come out. But I mean, obviously I had Tommy John, and I'm about 12 months out now. And from that experience, I've just kind of learned, like, it's really not about the throwing in the middle, it's about what you do before and after. And so one of my coaches at Ohio State kind of gave me this analogy, like, your arm is a debit card. So doing the stuff before and after, your prehab and rehab, you are putting money into your debit card. And then your throws, you're taking some out. So if you just throw and you don't do anything before or after, your debit card's going to run out, your arm's going to run out. You know, like my elbow just ran out of, you know, basically cash. So yeah.
And so, I mean, it starts at a young age, though, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, these kids need to take arm care seriously. I know myself, coaching a 15U team this year, I preach to my kids, you know, arm care, you know, get your pulls in afterwards. Do what you need to do before a game, because it's not as simple as you just show up to the field and throw a strike. So that's something I really believe that, you know, these kids at a younger age, you know, even at 8U it starts. You know, you need to start your routine and get into a routine right now, so when you get to high school, you have cash in your debit card, right? And you're ready to contribute, and then it plays throughout college if you're able to make it there, and if you're fortunate enough to play at the next level, it's there as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's something that all baseball players should take seriously, regardless of being a pitcher.
Oh, absolutely. And see, the thing is like when you see the younger guys, they're not throwing as hard, so they can get away with it, but they shouldn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they should still be doing their bands. They should still be doing, icing if they like it, maybe a Mark Pro or TENS unit, some kind of electric stem. Running, some people like running, some people don't, and that's fine. But by the time you get to high school, you should be able to find exactly what you like. And, I didn't have that, so it was a little bit tougher. So, I worked with Coach D-Rod and Coach Gamble to where, hey, I like to lift afterwards instead of a bunch of pulls. I did a bunch of sprints because I wasn't as of an explosive athlete as other people were. So I did 10 sprints after instead of long runs because I still wanted that quick fire, in my lower body and upper body. And so I just think the prehab and rehab needs to start at a young age because it will translate up to, how your arm feels in high school just because you find your routine when you're younger. So by the time you get there, you're fine.
Awesome. Yianni, I want to thank you for hopping on an episode of this Homegrown series. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. And, best of luck. We look forward to watching you at Toledo now and, watch you crush it in the MAC. And look forward to maybe getting you back on here soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. This has been another episode of Homegrown. Stay on the lookout for another one coming your way on the Jackson Baseball Twitter page or Jackson Baseball YouTube account. Until then, we'll see you when we see you.